Hello and welcome to a brand new season of the Two Robbies podcast, your destination for in-depth discussion and analysis of every single Premier League match week. I'm Robbie Mustoe and he's Robbie Earle, and we are more than ready for this season to get started.
That's right, Musty. After a summer break, I've got to say a lovely break, packed full of international football, we're back in Premier League mode and have you covered with everything you need to know before the 24-25 campaign kicks off this weekend. Okay, Musty, so let's get back in the groove. It's probably going to be a little bit rusty for us, but, you know, we'll get there, mate. We're going to start off and we're going to go with five big topics in five key areas of the table. Now, we're not going to be able to get across every club. We'll do that over the first few podcasts. Obviously, these new teams, these new players, there's plenty of new managers in the league. But let's start at this sort of top end and the place where I think most people will believe it will be probably down to a two-horse race. Are we going to have another two-horse race, Manchester City and Arsenal? And if so, Musty, who wins it and why?
Wow, let's get to the nitty gritty straight away.
Let's get started, mate. We've been we had a few months off. We'll get back to it.
Yeah, I mean, first off. Yeah, I'm not so sure it's going to be two-horse race. I think I think Liverpool for me is absolutely in my thinking that they can be right there again. Remember, we talked a lot on the show last year, Rob, about it being a three-horse race, kind of a long way into the to the competition. We'll get onto Liverpool. I like what they're doing. I like what's happened in pre-season. I like the way that this manager is coming across to the players. But if we do focus more on this first question about Arsenal and City, I'll give you my answer, mate, and I'll tell you why. Arsenal are going to win the league this coming season, and I'm not saying Arsenal could do it or they might do it. I'm saying Arsenal are going to win the league, and I'll tell you for why. And we're 4 days before the start of the season. Yeah. There is still time in the transfer window for this to change. Yeah. But let's just think about the way that these two teams. Remember, 2-point gap from last season. Nothing between them. And what's happened since then? Well, I'll tell you what's happened. Manchester City have sold Julian Alvarez to Atletico Madrid for a very big fee, around about £85 million, which, of course, could be used to strengthen that area. So you had 11 Premier League goals last year. And I know that there's different players there that can come in and score, Rob, but that's 11 goals is going to need replacing. So you've got to say they're a little weaker. They haven't added anything, been very quiet in the market. Again, things could change. So they, on the face of it, right now, as we sit down now, are a little weaker. Arsenal, my friend, are a little stronger. They're a little stronger. They're even stronger defensively. Calafiori, the player that we all watched in the Euros for Italy, a player that can play left back. I think he started as left back. He then excelled as a centre back in previous clubs. He had a brilliant season last year with Bologna. And I think the fans have already welcomed him to their stadium in the last pre-season game. He can solve maybe a problem at left back. So he's an addition. He makes them stronger, Rob. He at times will play. At times, I say, he might be the starting guy all the time. But the two centre-backs of Arsenal had to play all the way through. This is another option for Arsenal now. Another player that can play there. There's more rotation needed. Jurrien Timber, Robbie Earle, is another net positive for Arsenal. So if you think about things that have improved from last year, those two defenders will make them better. And we know that they're actively looking for another central midfield player, a holding player, to allow Declan Rice to do what he's better at. That will make them better again. They've had the benefit, Rob, of all the really good signings from last season, figuring it out last year. And the last one, before I let you come back in, is Kai Havertz. Now, he ended up being the best option as a centre forward. There was many weeks lost, Rob, with him playing in the left midfield and trying different spots. The manager knows now where he's best effective and where he can get you a good amount of goals. That, again, makes them better when I look at the start of the season. So that, with a small gap, is why Arsenal are a little better. They know a little more. And Man City have moved back a smidgen. That's why Arsenal are going to win it.
Oh. We might be a bit rusty, but I'm just trying to think if it's that Kai Havertz that you said is no good and no season. I'm just wondering if that's the Kai Havertz you're talking about. But I'll move on from there because I'm a little bit rusty in the old mind.
Move on, son. Move on.
But let's go. Let me take your argument in a slightly another direction. And for all the Arsenal positives, I agree. There is an argument, Rob, and I've been one of them that says you don't have to have a 20-plus goal scorer at the top of your pitch anymore to win the title. City have shown that they can do it with and without, whether it's with Haaland or with a false nine. Arsenal, I still have the capability of doing that. I still would like, from Arsenal's point of view, Rob, another attacking player to bring into the mix. I still feel with Saka, Martinelli, Havertz, Trossard, Odegaard dipping in, I still feel like if a couple of those have a bit of a drier patch and things aren't coming,
Martinelli did, Rob. Martinelli did, didn't he?
Jesus can give a goal. I still think for all that defensive setup, and he's obviously added another body to that back line, which is something we saw Pep do a couple of years ago, Rob. I think he bought Guardiola and Akanji and people, and were saying all these defenders. What he did is said, we're going to be solid at the back, and then that's going to allow the players in front of them to go and do the business. I think Mikel Arteta's gone down a similar route, and I like it. I absolutely like it. But I've got to go again, Rob, to the same position that people said last season that they can't do it again. They've won the treble. I've got to go back to what I'm calling Manchester City's last dance. It's a last dance for this team. It's a last dance for this group. It's a last dance for this manager. Kevin De Bruyne will not be at that football club in the next couple of years. Earle and Haaland will probably move on in the next couple of years. Both who, by the way, only had half a season's worth of football last season. So that's to get better. It's a group, Rob, that have found the code to the Premier League. We will see Pep Guardiola in the first few games of the season not always play his best 11. He'll find a way to rest and rotate and get people in. He's got the Premier League code nailed down. The third thing I want to say, and I went to, I was in New York, and I went to the AC Milan versus Manchester City game. Really interesting game. It was not full of stars. Jack Grealish was there, looked really sharp and focused. Oscar Bob, my friend, is a real addition to this squad who's going to get some minutes this year. James McAtee has been a big player in the preseason. Somebody at Pep said he wants to hang around and be part of things. I've seen Manchester City, Rob, now look like they can go with pace down either flank. So one time he usually has a football, he has a Foden, he has a Silva, and then he has a Doku or a pacey one on the other side. He's got times now where he can go pace down both sides. Pace down both sides gets him to the byline where balls come across for Earle and Haaland and others to score goals. So the options are still there. The desire will be still there. It's a last dance for this group and this football club, and they have the code to getting the Premier League. And I think we'll be talking about a team who's gone 5 out of 5.
Which it is, you know, I'm not going to lie. It's so incredible to think about going 5 in a spin that I just can't get my head around it, Rob. And, you know, I'll come back on a couple of those things.
Okay.
You know, can they? And listen, I questioned them again the same time last year. I questioned the same thing, Rob. Can they flip and do this again? You think about how hard they get chased down. They get chased down so hard every season, and yet
in 4 seasons, Rob, they've shown they can get above that. What makes this season different?
It's remarkable.
That's the bit I want to know. I still can't get my head around. Pep Guardiola was on the sideline at AC Milan versus Manchester City at the Met Stadium. Gosh, you would have thought it was a Champions League semi-final, Rob. He was relentless. Wow. He was relentless with kids, some kids who won't maybe see the first team. That relentless way of driving his players and getting the most out of his players is something where I don't know where he gets the energy from, and I think it's probably coming towards the end in terms of how Klopp was coming to the end. But I think there's one last dance for him, and Pep Guardiola is not going to go out losing a Premier League title.
Yeah, see, I think he might. I think it very probably will be his last season. I just, you know, Kevin De Bruyne is going to be a little older. Are we going to see Kevin? He's such a key player, Rob. There's many times that we've pointed out the amount of combinations, amount of assists he manages to Earle and Haaland. Can he get back to his very best, or is he a little less effective in this incredibly? So that's one. That's one concern. And just that, you know, they seem to start. The start, I feel, is going to be important, Rob. The first 2 or 3 months, because City often that's when they don't do great at the start, and then people start thinking about, can they go again? And of course they come strong at the end. I just think if that happens again, Arsenal, I got to think, are going to fly out the traps. I just question whether this, I know the manager probably could, Rob, but the players in Manchester City, after doing what they've done, can grind again to come back and claw back a gap that Arsenal may have, or Liverpool may have, or somebody that might surprise us all. I just think it would be it's just unthinkable to me that they can do what you're saying that they can do again, that they've got the code to the Premier League, and if they're 8 points behind, God, they can win nearly every single game. I just can't get it into my brain that they can do that again for a fifth time. And again, the differences, I think, have been narrowed by what Arsenal have done. They've got the youth, Rob. They've got another year with these young legs. They're getting more hungry. They're getting closer. I just feel it's going to be their time. And if Man City do it again, and whatever Pep does, we're talking, crazy achievement by this man and this team, and we will see if they can do that.
Just to come back on your couple of points before we move it on, because we will move it on. I think it's time, as you say, Kevin De Bruyne will still be outstanding, but maybe it's part of passing the baton on to Phil Foden. Rob, 19 goals, 8 assists last season. Maybe it's Phil Foden's time. Interesting, you talked about the start of the season, and I looked at both the clubs. I think it's around September time. Manchester City at home to Arsenal, away to Newcastle in the first, I think, 5 or 6 games. So there's a couple of games there where, you, like you said, if they're not in, you drop points. You drop too many points in this league, you're not going to win the league. For Arsenal, similarly, Arsenal have got to get to 90-plus points, Rob, to win this title. They've only done it once. I think it was the Invincible season, 2004, when they won the title. So, and they have mid-September, so they're away at Spurs, ahead of that game away at Manchester City in September. 2 back-to-back games that could have a big bearing on both of the outcomes of both these teams. So it is going to be tight. I think it'll be a 2-horse race. As much as I've liked and I've enjoyed, and similar like yourself, sort to understand a little bit more about Liverpool and Arne Slot, I still think the demands of this league, a new manager coming in, a new group of players with this manager, it still might take them a little bit longer to move it on. Rob, just before we move on, and we have to make this point, and I know Manchester City fans will be saying, we always go back to this, but it is some breaking news that's come out over the last couple of days, and it's come from the Premier League. This was a article by The Times, Martin Ziegler in The Times, a very respected journalist, who said, the hearing for Manchester City's on 115 alleged breaches of the Premier League rules is set to start next month, with the outcome known early in the new year. An independent commission was expected to start in November, but sources with knowledge of the case have said it's now due to begin in mid to late September, unless there are any further delays. The hearing has been scheduled to last for 10 weeks, with the commission members expected to deliver their verdict at the start of 2025. So by the turn of the year, we'll know about these 115 charges. And the Premier League at this point have declined to comment anymore. City have not responded to the article. But it does seem, Rob, during the course of this season, this thing is going to go live. This thing is going to be out there in the public domain. That, as much as anything, could stop Manchester City. Could either stop Manchester City or could help Manchester City. Pep Guardiola, as we know, is going to use every tool he can in his armory to motivate his team. Guess what he's going to be saying when everyone's saying they've cheated and they haven't done things right and they've got these breaches? Can he use that to his benefit, or will that work against him? That's something I don't think any of us can answer.
No, I think it probably... He's the sort of guy, that Rob, that will probably use it as a positive force for his team, everybody in the world against us type of thing. What I would say to that news, Rob, is that thank goodness we're going to get somewhere with this now. It's felt so unfair that these other clubs have been deducted points and been punished for, these breaches. I know it's very different, but thank goodness they're going to get to it now. And I'm sure there's going to be an appeal when it gets, when they come to some conclusion in the new year, there'll be an appeal from whoever. So it might rumble on a little bit, but hopefully, even if we know by the end of the season, Rob, what's happened, whether they've been proven guilty or not, and the punishments or the consequences will be known by then at that point. But at least they get into it, and everybody knows that's happening. So thank goodness for that. let's let the courts do their thing, and
Yeah.
you know, we remove this asterisk, or it's there, or they get penalized by. I mean, who knows what might happen? We're not qualified to say that, but we know it's a big deal, and it's very different to the other charges, the PSR rules. This is very different, very serious allegations against the club, and they're going to fight it very, very hard. But at least we'll get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, hopefully during the course of this season we'll know, and whether that has a bearing on City in the title, we will have to wait and see. Okay, mate, we've plenty of time on question one. Question two, which is more of a, which Big Six club will have the most success after making notable manager headlines this summer? Liverpool obviously changed the manager. Chelsea changed their manager. Manchester United didn't change a manager, but it feels like a change with all that's gone on at the football club. Which of Liverpool, Chelsea, or Man United, Rob, do you think can have the most success with a fresh look at their football clubs, if I put it that way?
Yeah, Liverpool, no question. This is just for me, just on what we're hearing, and I know we've all been there before. People say it's only pre-season, but his initial interview, the way he's conducted himself, the way that pre-season has gone, they've had a very successful pre-season, beaten a lot of good teams and playing very well. I take more stock in what some of the players say, because I think that means a lot. And we heard, I'm sure you heard the same quotes as well from Harvey Elliott, and then Curtis Jones spoke very well about the manager basically saying, and I quote him, he's amazing. He said he's amazing. Like, and we know already that now that he is a very hands-on coach, Rob. He's more than Jurgen Klopp ever was. Jurgen Klopp was the background guy in the training ground, and other coaches were doing all the work. But he is absolutely there, directing, moving the players around exactly where he wants them. In the tactical sense, it's going to be very different. It's going to be much more possession-based football, more like your Arsenal and your Manchester City. So less of the flat-out football that Klopp was so brilliant at. There's you know, the market's been very quiet at the moment. They've been obviously desperately trying to buy a central midfield player. Which they're still trying to get. Martin Zubimendi, the player from Real Sociedad, the Spanish international, the player that came in against England in the final when Rodri went out, looks a quality player, would be a brilliant number 6 for them. But I think even today, Rob, the reports are saying that he's going to stay put. And
it doesn't look like he's going to come now.
I guess he loves where he's at. But that's a quick answer to the 3 clubs, and we'll talk about all 3 clubs, Rob. But I just look at Liverpool right now, and with the squad that they've got, if you go through the squad, you know, it's pretty blooming good.
So just in terms of that, Rob, because obviously, again, you start doing your research. I've read many similar things. I think it was Curtis Jones talked about how much he. You know, when we think of Klopp and the Gegenpress and what he brought to Liverpool, this guy's almost about, well, if we don't give the ball away, we don't have to win it back. So let's be more conscious on our possession and building the play. Said it feels a little bit more enjoyable. But regardless of style, Rob, and whatever style it is, whether it's sitting back, whether it's a half press, which is the common phrases, or you're going for the press, whatever style of football you're playing, doesn't that take a little bit of bedding down within your group? And isn't that bedding down period something that Liverpool might have to deal with this year? It's not, you know, it's not going to be great days on every day. Some of that possession's not going to work on every day. I've seen them at times though suck people on and then go long in the friendly games. And it was something that I heard. It's a bit of the up, back, and through, like the third man run, which is something that's been in football for a long time. But based off your possession, he's allowing midfield runners to go on. All those tactics, Rob, are great, and they work well in training games and maybe friendly games. But what I'm trying to say is, might there be a period in the Premier League where this has to bed down and it has to be tweaked? And, you know, the Jurgen Klopp style didn't happen or wasn't at its finest at day one. I would say it took him 2 or 3 years to get to where they really wanted to be with that team that could play, you know, heavy metal football and basically intensity and speed to run the game out of you with the quality that he had in other players.
No, I agree. And that's why, you know, I'm not being more bullish on them having a time. I mean, they were third in the table last year, Rob. They weren't that far away from the top 2. But I absolutely agree. I mean, sometimes there's variables on that, Rob. Sometimes this stuff kind of happens pretty quickly and they look really grooved early on. And sometimes
we
it takes
saw with
a little
Ange,
bit more
actually, didn't we? To be fair, Ange at Spurs, I suppose, is a good example.
Yeah, it kind of went great. Then it went a little bit stale and they struggled a little bit. That will be what many will point to, Rob, as being the reason where they can't challenge for the title this first season. Now, I'm sure that many, including myself, will think, a season of bedding in, they've got a new hierarchy now, Rob. Richard Hughes, Rob Edwards, excellent people in those positions, and sporting director and technical director are being very, very patient with the signings. It's probably coming from Arne Slot, getting a sense of what he's got in pre-season. He's had the internationals. Trent Alexander-Arnold came back for the last game, I believe, and they had 2 games in the same day at Anfield. How's he going to use him? Is it going to be a similar? So all that stuff will take a little bit of sorting out, and there will be results, but that aren't great because of that. So I think you make a great point, but I think we can both agree, Rob, that the first signs, and of course we'll see when the games start, it's going to be different, and it's going to be, and I think the Liverpool fans are going to grow to like it.
Can I just add one more point to this on Liverpool? Then we will move on to United and Chelsea. I'm asking you, knowing how what the answer is, but for our viewers and listeners, I just want to make the point, Rob, that how different a man management can be to players and individuals to get a little more from. Darwin Núñez is somebody I'm thinking about straight away, who apparently, as he's spoken to, we know Núñez and Klopp at times didn't always see eye to eye. Mo Salah and Jurgen Klopp, we saw maybe towards the end of Klopp's time, as brilliant a manager as he was, maybe the two started to rub up themselves up a little against each other. So what I'm trying to say is, and what I seem to see from Arne Slot is a man management as well of his players. And Rob, that can have a big effect on individuals, people who are not quite I'm thinking of Gakpo, I'm thinking of Núñez, I'm thinking of maybe a Curtis Jones and Harvey Elliott, a couple of players who maybe feel like, actually, he fancies me and I'm going to play, and he puts his arm around them. And not that Klopp didn't, because no one hugged like Jurgen Klopp. No one brought the personality to a club like Jurgen Klopp. But this looks and feels a bit different, Rob. And I think it's something that might be to Liverpool's benefit.
I think it's a great point. It's a great point, and I think you're absolutely right. I mean, there was times, Rob, and we were at Anfield a few times, and we were watching Jurgen Klopp. I mean, he hammers players. I mean, he hammers players, and again, there's a balance there, right? Because some people need that, and it's obviously Sir Alex Ferguson. Great managers at times do hammer the players. It seems like Arne Slot's a little different. Mo Salah. The whole thing with Mo Salah, like you said, Darwin Núñez, Trent Alexander-Arnold. I think, it will be a different guy. And the final thing that I just popped into my head now is I read an article. Who was it from? Somebody that was with him at Feyenoord. I think it was one of the coaching staff, saying that his biggest asset really is developing players, is really working with players, particularly young players, and making them a lot better, like a ton better, just by individual care and attention and tactical help and everything to try and help. I think every player has a plan, his own personal plan to improve as a footballer. So it's a good point, Rob, and it's something different. It's good to bring up. And Diogo Jota is the other one, Rob, that just brings to mind the goal he scored in pre-season, the quality finisher that he is. I mean, are we going to see, last question on this, are we going to see more of Jota as the striker, Rob, instead of Darwin Núñez? Are they going to battle it out? What's going to happen with the centre-forward position? Because I think Mo Salah looks in great shape. He looks like he's going to do his normal thing from the right.
Yeah, so much to look forward to, Rob, with this league, a new manager, a great club like Liverpool, and, the success they've had under Klopp. What does it look like under Arne Slot? It's going to be fascinating. I think another fascinating story, and another club I think everybody's going to have eyes on, is Manchester United, Rob. That, when we come towards the end of last season in the Premier League, there was talk about whether he'd keep his job. Erik ten Hag, he won the FA Cup. He got the vote of confidence. These are new backrooms. You talk about the technical directors and the management behind him now has been addressed. It starts to feel like, to me, Rob, there's some proper building blocks being put down at Manchester United. You can see that they're trying to buy a younger, more developed talent rather than trying to buy, players and just fit them in, and they don't fit the right profile. So there's many positives, I think, going into the season for Manchester United. But What do you think is the reality of where we are with Erik ten Hag, this group, and Manchester United?
Well, I think that the key word for me is transitional. And before I say much more, I'll put it out there. I was surprised that they extended his contract. I was surprised, but with so much change going on, Rob, and so much kind of positivity from the new ownership and new technical directors and Dan Ashworth coming in and Omar Barada, the CEO, and getting good people in, Jason Wilcox. We saw them at the recent pre-season game. I just thought they would have switched the manager.
Anything to do, Rob, with them maybe recognizing that he didn't have the proper tools, he didn't have the proper backup to be Manchester United manager? I mean, I kind of agree with you, and we were on a similar take for much of last season. But maybe, the way things were being bought, the way the club was being run, the people in the positions, probably inexperienced, not good enough. Did they probably feel we could have a decent manager here, but behind all the scenes, it's not going as it should be?
Yeah, I think so. I think the people that are out there available. Again, Mauricio Pochettino, Rob, was available. We'll get on to Chelsea. He was available, and I got to think that must have been very tempting, a new project. Yeah. But they obviously the professionals they have there doing that just decided that there was nobody that was really, really perfect. So why switch? Why not give? I mean, I think, to be fair to the Man United fans, most of the ones that I know, they're kind of happy that Ten Hag's getting more time. Yeah. And maybe you're right. Maybe the back room and the recruitment department, there were a lot of the players came in with Ajax connection that he had. There's another couple that could be coming in, and we'll check the market on that the next few days. Yeah. But anyway, he is staying on. I think what we're going to see, and we'll be there on Friday pitch side and hopefully asking questions about this, is a slightly different style. And Arne, the goalkeeper, Rob, said in a recent interview, I'm going to be taking risks, just so you know. Like, we're going to play out from the back a little bit more. So,
like he wasn't taking them last season.
So I think that he is going to try and make this team be more of a footballing side, more progressive, more front foot, more possession dominant. I mean, I couldn't believe last year that so many teams home and away were dominating Manchester United with ball and possession. So, I mean, honestly, mate, we could have a full podcast on this club. Matthias de Ligt springs to mind as a wow, like that's kind of an interesting signing. Hasn't been super successfur, you got to say, after leaving Ajax. His stint at Juventus and Bayern Munich, he wasn't really a regular starter, a first teamer at the end there. You look at the European Championships, he never saw a minute, I don't think. I think he sat on the bench the whole time with Netherlands. They got
very well thought of as a youngster when he first broke through. And so maybe that's where United are, Rob, those we've got to shine up again and get them going. The injuries, Euro and Højlund have both got injuries that look like they're going to, the injury thing is another problem. I mean, I read an article where Erik ten Hag had said basically last season the injuries restricted him from playing the football that he wanted. Okay. I kind of think that starts to go away, although they've picked up a couple of injuries. Some of that starts to go away, Rob, this season. I think we need to see what his style is. We need to see more compression between the units. The team was far too spread last season, however he played, whoever was playing. And I think it's an important season for, Marcus Rashford, Rob. He's no longer a kid. It's a huge Mason Mount, Casemiro, Mainu, not in terms of, he's going to develop and at some point they need to find the right partner and the right setup to get the best of him because he's a generational talent. And these bits, Garnacho on one side and Højlund, I think, and Zirkzee, the striker who they brought in, these people who we feel have got potential, but this has got to start to be realised under Erik ten Hag, and we've got to see a system that I think, that fits. That's unlucky. Some days it might not win, but I think we want to see something that's a little bit more progressive and a step on from what we've seen over the last couple of years.
I think Amad Diallo, Rob, is an interesting name to throw into the mix. Amad has looked blimmin' dynamic. He had injuries last year, I think on loan before that. He has looked excellent in pre-season. You think about him, you think about Garnacho, you think about Mason Mount coming into the side, and Zirkzee is going to be an interesting one, Rob, because when a club like Man United sign players, people like me and you, we do a ton more research and we look at some games, look at the clips, and his goal numbers aren't brilliant. That's
lovely football though,
but he's got a little bit about him that is kind of cleverness around the box, and is so that's exciting, very different from what they've got already with wingers, young, hungry wingers. Kobbie Mainoo in midfield that we know is a class act. The Casemiro thing worries me, Rob. I got to be honest. I think if they can unload Casemiro, they would in a heartbeat. They still need somebody to play alongside him. Again, this is transitional. My first word for United. The back four, Rob. You talked about this Earle, the French player coming in that looks $1 million. He looks a brilliant player. What was he, 18 or 19? Really, really 18, young. Good signing. The Bayern Munich too that might come in, Moroccan fullback.
Yeah,
I mean, it could be almost a whole different back four, possibly. There's still an issue at left back. Luke Shaw, I believe, is still injured. So it's going to be transitional. Going back to your point, there's got to be better football. We've got to see some signs of this is look. And to be fair, the Community Shield, Rob, against City, 1-1, wasn't it, after 90 minutes? There was some good signs there for Manchester United. Yeah. The Rashford thing is still going to bother me, Rob, because I think I'm at the point now where I feel like the amount of games that you need to see a brilliant piece of Rashford football is going to get too many, Rob. There's going to get too many average ones before you get the great ones with these young players coming through. So, and I understand that he's really attacked pre-season. He's in great shape and he's really worked hard. But it's that. Come on, you got to show some mentality, show some consistency.
Yeah, he missed a couple of chances as well, didn't he? In the
off his left foot.
Well. Yeah, a couple of looks, which. But listen, he's one of those that I'm sure one good game gets off to a good start against Fulham on Friday, and his season gets kicked up and running, and he can get going. So I think I kind of feel with Manchester United, everybody's sort of giving Ten Hag another look at it. He's got another go, and we're all waiting to see what it's going to look like now moving forward. I think that's the case. Let's move on to Chelsea, mate, because they're a team who, again, we're never quite sure. I mean, get themselves in to the end of the season. Pochettino's moving things along. We think, okay, there's a bit of stability. He gets, one of the most surprising decisions I've ever seen since we've been doing the Premier League. Pochettino goes. Enzo Maresca comes in, who was the Leicester City manager, got them promoted last season from the Championship. As a disciple of Pep, has worked with Pep, got a good reputation as a coach and somebody on the training ground, but apparently, likes it done his way, which we'll wait and see how that pans out at Chelsea. It kind of feels a little bit like same old Chelsea, though, Rob. I think it's 11 players I've seen now have been bought since June. They've got something like 50 pros at the football club. And I'm just going to read you a list here, Rob, because I thought you'd enjoy this. At the moment in their squad, this is the breakdown for Maresca when he started his first day in training. They've got 8 goalkeepers, 7 fullbacks, 9 centre-backs, 15 midfield players, 9 wide players, and 7 strikers. On you go, Enzo.
It's hard to know how to attack this Chelsea story. Right at the start, like you, mate, Mauricio Pochettino, we saw, I think they won the last 5 Premier League games on a spin, and they started to look like a team.
Finished 6th in the league, Rob. Finished 6th.
Yeah. And then they make a change, and they've got everybody in, by the way, now. The personnel, the CEO, the 2 directors of football, they're all in place. They're all advising, to try and do the right thing. And they thought it was the right decision to switch the manager out. I guess they've got a ton of faith in Enzo Maresca. A rookie, really. Never managed in the Premier League before. He's been around Man City, of course. I think he got fired from his previous job before he went into Leicester City. Was it at Parma in Italy? Great kind of reports about his tactical stuff, and I think you're going to see a very similar style to Man City. And then you go. So like, wow, what a decision that is to switch the manager. And I know the Chelsea fans are going to be thinking, Blimey, what are we doing? And then you get onto the players, Rob. And I think my line on this would be a Chelsea football club more interested in a player investment business or in chasing titles. That's the question. Because this is absolute craziness. Anybody out there wants to listen to any other podcast or any other opinion or any other reporters. I saw one from Rory Smith today, the really good journalist that writes for the New York Times. basically like this is crazy. We've never seen this before. This amount of players, this amount of young players, this amount of money keeps on and on and on and on. I got to think in the hope that they can sell these off for more later. Let alone, Rob, trying to figure out the dressing room. We had this before with Graham Potter. Graham Potter struggled with this. Didn't they physically knock a wall down to get more spaces in their dressing room? So how a new manager at this level to come in and make those big decisions can work with so many players. I mean, think wingers. Like, I think somebody listed off the wingers at the club. I mean, it's so many. Pedro Neto, by the way, is one of my favorites. I love Pedro Neto. I mean, he's had a lot of injuries to be bought by a big club, and that will be the concern with him. But everybody else, trying to keep people happy, trying to teach them a new system, trying to motivate, having to sell Conor Gallagher, that was one of your best players last year, and you know what you're going to get from him in midfield. I don't know what I'm going to get for Enzo Fernandez in midfield. Moses Caicedo struggled at times. We're going to see more of Lavia now in midfield.
Doesn't that show the problem, Rob? They actually didn't get... Conor Gallagher at the moment has come back home to London, and they're working out if they can get the transfer done. I mean, it's incredible. You know, they were after this Marodian, wasn't it? The forward, 20-year-old striker. They don't get him, Rob. So what do? They say, "Oh, we'll have João Felix then." I mean, how can a profile of a young attacking striker and João Felix, somebody they've had and known, how can you go for one and then because you don't get one, go, "Oh, we'll take the other"? These are... I've got to be honest, Rob, and I don't like to use this word lightly. There's a hint of chaos about Chelsea. There's a hint of chaos around.
It can't be chaos, Rob. It can't be chaos, can it? This is so busy in the market, Rob.
Talk about the structure. Think about being in that football club right now, Rob. You're one of the players. You're one of the 50-odd players there. You've got your first game of the weekend. Think about pre-seasons and how you get prepared and how you get ready, and then the team start, this week you're starting to work on the team that might play and the relationships and the free kicks and all that. With all those players, with people coming in and out the door every day, how are we getting to that stage where we're ready to start, where the structure's in place?
No, I agree with what. So that will be the chaotic part of it. So I agree with that part. What I was just thinking, Rob, that this must be measured thinking from the hierarchy. They must have said to those directors,
in terms of the sales and the transfer.
Let's get all these
this
players.
Is becoming a financial. It's becoming more of a financial club than a football club.
It's a player investment business. That's what it is. That's what they've done before. And the rules when you have to sell your homegrown players because they're pure profit is crazy to me, because you don't have to do that.
They've had good managers and they've played good football and they've won trophies doing that, Rob. I'm not so sure this guy set up for success, or this guy's the right guy who's going to lead him in that direction in this coming time.
All I would say is, in terms of how they might do, right? Because that's what people watching and listening want to know. At some point, Rob, right? There's so many players gone in there. There's got to be a good team in there. There's just got to be a good. There's
4 good teams in there. Never mind one.
Well, I mean, like Cole Palmer was. There's got to be diamonds.
He's just signed a new contract, by the way, to 2033. 9-year deal.
You've got Caicedo, you've got Enzo Fernandez, a World Cup winner. And Nkunku's going to have a bigger season this year. Pedro Neto.
The kid Lavia has done quite well in pre-season.
There's a lot of about him. So there has to be a good team in there. Difficult for the coach to try and bring it out with the way they're going to play, which is going to be very much like your Man City. But I mean, in some ways, Rob, I think they could do well because there's just a lot of good players there.
I'm not feeling the vibe so much, mate. I've got to be honest.
Oh, it's going to be. I think that's Chelsea's the hardest team to try and predict how they're going to do in the league, because
they could finish 3rd or they could finish 10th.
Yeah, right, exactly right. All right, next question, my friend. Go for it.
Where are we on my question sheets? Okay, so we talked about who'll be next. Let's see. Which club is poised to build on their success from the recent season? So we had a number of clubs, I thought, who finished the season in really good nick. I'm talking, Aston Villa, I'm talking Spurs, talking Newcastle. Of those kind of size clubs, Rob, who are you most looking forward to? Who do you think can take the next step?
Well, do you know what? I'm just going to start in a little bit in reverse order, Rob, because I'm just thinking about Aston Villa, right?
Yeah.
And I think this is a club right now with the transfer decisions that I've seen people very, very happy with what they've done. Yeah. Now, please disagree with me if I'm wrong. I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling it for Aston Villa.
I think it's our first disagreement of the new season.
All right.
I'm quite liking it. I'm quite liking it.
Okay. Let me tell you why I don't.
Okay.
I'm not thrilled with it. I don't think they're better off. By the way, I mean Douglas Luiz, again, one of my favorite midfield players, Brazilian central midfield player, can do a little bit of everything. Scores goals from there. Really, really good footballer. Who's left 51 million euros. He left the football club. And Moussa Diaby, who didn't light it up at Villa, but was a really bright, what a good option as a striker or a wide player. And so that's over 100 million euros. And in place has come in Ian Matson, good 44 million from Chelsea. He's a left side player. He's a good player. He's a good left side, a left wing or left attacking fullback. And Amadou Onana, 60 million euros from Everton. Now, I'm not having that those two players are going to make the team better than the two that are leaving the squad. And I know that Diaby didn't always play, but Douglas Luiz for me is much better football than Onana. Am I missing something, Rob, or are you a big fan of Onana? We saw him in the Euros.
I think Onana's got huge potential, Robin. He's one of them. I liked him from day one, and I see him at Everton sometime, and he annoys me. And we've watched him live a couple of times when we've been at the stadium. I think there's a bit more. Go through your gears because you can do that. He's well thought of internationally, and though people Kevin De Bruyne's talked about him, I think he can be a real force. And I like that under Unai Emery. I think he'll get out. And Matson, I liked from Chelsea. I think the Ross Barkley signing is interesting. Cameron Archer, I think is come back. I think this Barenchi, the kid they signed from Juve, Rob, I went and looked at him. I thought, what's this all about? Central midfield player, young. One of the big things I'd have to say about Villa, Rob, is bringing their age group down. They've got great recruitment. They've got good people behind the scenes. They're bringing young players who are going to be around for the next 4 or 5 years with a manager who I think is looked at this team and his squad and said, how am I going to be able to play Champions League and Premier League in a week? A little bit like the Newcastle scenario. Newcastle
really similar.
I think these players in there who are Premiership ready. So if Onana doesn't play in the Champions League, he might play in the next weekend in the Premier League. I think Matson's is a quality player. I was surprised Chelsea let him go. I thought he was as good as anything they had. They let him go, and we saw what he did. What he's done. This Barake, I think, is the midfield player. I'm telling you, looks a little player, mate. He might be one of these little finds that Villa have. You know, they've got John Duran to back up Ollie Watkins. You know, people were looking at Duran. I like it. I've got to be honest. I like it. I like Unai Emery. I like how they work. I like what he's bought. A young, hungry group. I'm okay with it.
Yeah, and I like a lot of it as well, Rob. Don't get me wrong. I love what the manager did last year, and their position fourth in the Premier League table is astonishing. I just am a little underwhelmed with these deals that were done. Now, fourth place last year, it does feel very Newcastle to me, Rob. Like it's going to be hard for them to be competitive. Of course, the Champions League is, I think, there's two extra group stage games in there. Because everything's getting more games, so that's going to make it a little harder. So I mean, we'll see. So that's interesting, Rob. That's something we'll keep an eye on then, because we differ a little bit on that about how they do. I can't see them, getting to fourth again. I mean, I think it's going to be a difficult season, and Onana, it may be a key, and maybe that's where we differ a little bit, and we'll see how he does. The other teams we're going to talk about in this kind of little group, Tottenham, Rob, Tottenham Hotspur. I kind of like what they're doing in terms of the market. Now, the big news on Spurs, of course, is Dominic Solanke and £65 million for a new striker. Wow. And you can go down different roads with this. You can look at his stats apart from last year, 19 Premier League goals last year, an outstanding season with a different manager, a different style of play, got more chances, played very much in the penalty box, was a finisher. Other than that, his numbers are not great. It's a big fee. But what he is, Rob, and I know that this is one of the reasons that Ange wanted him, he's one of the, in fact, I think the stats say he's the best pressing centre forward. So he's the most hardworking. So I think that and Archie Gray, the kid from Leeds United. I think he's a player as well. So I kind of like I feel like Tottenham, Rob, have done a really nice job over the last year or so. And by the way, Timo Werner's come back for another season loan, which is a positive. They've managed getting players, Rob, that like your Doggies and your Pedro Porros and your Basumas and your Kulusevskis, players that aren't going to be demanded by the very top clubs, but he's kind of, he's almost trying to push them to a level of a Champions League player, or obviously he wants to win the Premier League. So I kind of like the way he's growing the team, and I think these two players are interesting, good fits for Tottenham that aren't stellar names, but they might fit into the group really, really well.
Do you think Solanke starts? Has he been bought to start, do you think?
I think
or has he
absolutely.
been bought to back up?
I think he starts. Yeah.
And Sonny goes one side, and then we got challenges for Johnson, Kulusevski.
You got Kulu on the Johnson, Kulusevski, and Richarlison probably off the bench. Remember, Richarlison, Rob, has been very good on the left-hand side as well. Yeah. So whoever needs a bit of rotation,
I think it's good business. I think he's a smart footballer, Solanke. I think he can be part of their build-up. He runs in behind at times if the space is there. I'm kind of interested in the development of Poch, and he talked about last year that it's his first year. Next year they'll be better. We'll know it's a second pre-season. One thing that came up, and again, start to read information and stats, Rob. One of the stats that came up, and I know you can make some stats, but 61 goals conceded last season for Spurs was up there with Fulham. I think same as Fulham, who were 13th. 3 more than Crystal Palace, who were 10th. And there is a sense, and the stats were saying that their expected goals against were that they're sometimes too easy to play against. Now, is that something that, and I know we sometimes differ on, Angie's philosophy in that the players have got to have that bedded down first, but is there a tweak of where his team have got to be better? Maybe that it points to the Solanke, because I don't think it's just a back four, because at times I think the back four when they were in were good. Have they got to be a better pressing team, maybe from the middle and the top end of the pitch, in order to stop people playing through them as easily and getting looks at goal?
Yeah, I think that's part of it, Rob. There's 2 parts to this for me. I think that's the first part, and they will definitely be better. It's the counter press, isn't it? When they're attacking, they give the ball away, and then they go right back and win it back again. Solanke's going to make them better in that for sure. So then teams can't get the ball and build up a little bit against them. The other thing is their football, Rob. And we all know that they absolutely committed to playing out from the back, and it wasn't always clean. And when the football isn't clean, we're going to see this from Chelsea this season of trying to play out, then that's a really surefire way of conceding opportunities when your football's not good. The question is, Rob, and this is where we're a little different, is whether Ange Postecoglou will reflect on last season, those numbers, and in any way slightly change his approach to the Premier League week in, week out. My gut feeling is he won't. He will absolutely do the same thing, but it wouldn't totally surprise me if we saw something a little different, given the nature of the league and given the nature of trying to play his difficult, complicated football at times, week in, week out, and not concede chances. So that's something we should watch out for. But I think the first part, the pressing part without the ball, is going to be better with this guy leading the line and leading the press from the number 9 position.
Well, let's not forget as well, Rob, they got Europa League football to deal with. So there's going to be Thursday night games and Sunday football. And again, looking at stats for Spurs last season, they only played 41 games in all competitions because they went out of both cups early. They're going to have a lot more games, Rob, and they're not always going to have the energy and that intensity, maybe, if you're playing on a Thursday night and a Sunday, as we've seen teams do. And whether that tweak just comes in, whether there's a handball mark 2, just a slight adaptation on that to maybe keeping possession, not always looking to go forward, might be something we'll see. It's going to be interesting. He's a smart coach. He's had some. I know he was working at the European Championships as well, doing some work there, looking at teams and systems. And he's a very deep thinker of the game. So really interested to see what he comes out with in his second season as Spurs manager.
All right, Newcastle United, Rob. Let's have a chat about Newcastle United because they had a difficult season last year. Actually, quite an incredible amount of injuries really hurt them in their Champions League campaign and their Premier League campaign. Sandro Tonali, the midfield player that was banned all last year through betting, bad betting, when he's, of course, breaking rules on that. I look at the Newcastle, and they've not got a ton of activity in the window so far. Paul Mitchell's a new sporting director. The news, I guess, in the summer, Rob, it surprised me, was Amanda Staveley pulling out the club. Was involved in.
The club,
Yeah, and she's sort of saying it's time for new projects, as if she wants to specialize in taking over football clubs and bringing new ownership to them. So not a ton of upgrades. I know they're trying desperately to sign Mark Gahey, the brilliant centre back from Crystal Palace. Lewis Hall came in, left back from Chelsea. I think it's a really good addition to be the regular starter now on the left hand side. I know Dan Burns' best position is there. So with Mark Gahey, Fabian, you got Shea, you got Trippier. I'm missing somebody. Who's the right back, Rob, that came in? Young right back.
Livramento.
You could be looking at a different and improved back four. You look at the midfield areas with players coming back from injury and Tonali back in there. You look at the attacking options they've got. I think the only place, Barnes and Anthony Gordon. You've got Callum Wilson. You've got Alexander Isak. The right side of the attack, for me, is a little bit Jacob Murphy and Miguel Almiron being the two players there. But I am very bullish on Newcastle United. I love the way when they're firing. We didn't see it last year. I think they've got a really good chance, Rob, of getting in the top four. I believe that. We're going through sections here and different questions. And in this group, we're talking Tottenham, Newcastle, and Aston Villa. Wouldn't surprise me one bit. In fact, I expect Newcastle United to finish higher than those other two clubs. And we'll see how Chelsea get on and Manchester United get on. But I just feel like this squad is a strong squad. They've got brilliant support, clever additions. If they get Mark Gahey,
that would be good business.
And they've got good attacking players.
It hasn't quite been the cash fest that we all thought, though, is it? With the takeover, and it exactly can't be. But it's been very different, I think, and it's felt very different. What I will always point back to, and it was a Premier League summer season this time last season, the work that Eddie Howe puts into his team is phenomenal during the pre-season, Rob. We watched them train, and Eddie talked about, he says, we'll do 20, 25-minute sessions. It's full on. It's at match pace. Gives them a break. They go back to it again. And when they play with that intensity, when they play at home with a group of players who I think are getting used to it, because I was saying, a little afraid that some players can almost like have a burnout, too much training. And, we saw with Bielsa maybe with his leads. But I think he feels, right sustained times of intense work with good rest gets you ready for the weekends. And you're right. I think, the Champions League hindered them last season. The Tonali business hindered them last season. If they could get Gay in, it looks like they're still trying to do that business before the transfer window shuts. I mean, that's a pretty decent looking outfit for Newcastle.
There was some interesting, Rob, wasn't there? That they managed to. Anthony Gordon was a big target of Liverpool. It seemed like a few weeks ago, and it felt, or the reports were that his head was turned a little bit around actually in the middle of the Euros. About that, but that's gone very quiet. Of course, they got no European football this year, Rob.
No, exactly. So I think that gives them a massive bonus.
Yeah, and Willa Sula, the young kid from Sheffield United, the striker that they just brought in, is an interesting, clever little bit of business. Not big money, somebody that can do a little bit. May throw at the football club. So I'm really kind of, I think Newcastle could have a really good season.
Okay, question 4, my friend. Okay, which of the clubs will end up being the biggest surprise of the season? And we've kind of got a West Ham, a Palace, a Bournemouth, 3 teams who particularly finished well last season. Obviously, West Ham got a new manager, Lopetegui coming in for David Moyes. Crystal Palace under Glasner had a stunning finish to the end of the season, and Earle was in there for manager of the season, I think, with what he did at Bournemouth. Those kind of teams, Rob, who are you expecting most from?
Well, I think Pedro Neto leaving Wolves is a blow to Gary O'Neill, because I think we both enjoyed what he did last year. I think we're waiting to see is he the real deal, Gary O'Neill, if you like, with the way that he coaches. They've got money to spend, so I was excited about them. But I think West Ham United is going to be really interesting. We've seen it a little bit in pre-season with some of the goals they've scored. Lopetegui is polar opposite to David Moyes. You see a sporting director now, Rob, at the football club, Tim Staindon, that's doing his work. Remember last year there was conflict between Moyes and Staindon about who they were going to try and bring in.
Problems, weren't they?
They've brought so many players in. Just look at the list of them now, Rob. Max Kilman was big money as a central defender. Crescencio Somerville, a very clever winger. We saw him at Leeds United. Lewis Guilherme, the winger, they brought in the club as well. Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Nicholas Fulkrug, Rob, the German.
It's an interesting one, eh?
It's an interesting one. He's an old-fashioned number 9. He's going to be in the right place at the right time.
31 years of age, mate.
I like it. West Ham have been looking for a striker for a long period of time. And this guy is the potential, Rob, for being one of those kind of cult hero types, the big guy up front, the bundles balls in. Apparently, I've seen it for myself. His hold-up play is really, really good. And you've still got Paquetá, you've still got Kudus. I think it's going to be, you look at the squad, Rob, they've gone for it a little bit, West Ham United, and I'm excited to see the way that they play with these new players in that stadium, with the fans seeing the football that they've always really wanted, the tiki-taka and the more possession, attack-minded football. I think West Ham United, in terms of this group of clubs that we're talking about that could spring a surprise, are right there for me.
Yeah, and Lopetegui, you sense unfinished business in the Premier League, the way he left with Wolves when things were going. You're right. What interests me most about this is seeing that group of players, Rob, when how many times on that tactic board, how many times have we done breakdowns and sort of said, with all these players, does Moyes need to be so deep? Do we need to be so defensive minded? Could they be more possession based? Could you trust them more? Well, Lopetegui will do all of those things. I'm not saying he's front foot everywhere, everybody flying forward, but he'll want possession of the ball. He'll want them to build it up. He'll want to keep control of the game in a very different way to David Moyes. And I'm interested to see how those players who we all think are technically, your Paquetas and your Kudos in players, how they
Joe Bowen as well
in this new thing.
Yeah, I think any club, Rob, that's proactive as West Ham have been with signing players early in the window, giving the manager a chance to get them settled in for pre-season, it often works out really well for them. So I'm most surprised about them. I mean, Bournemouth, I don't know, other clubs around this situation. What do you feel about Crystal Palace, Rob? Because they did so well, didn't they? Glasner.
Again, I don't think, Rob, as a Crystal Palace fan, I'm not sure I'd be looking for a season more than I would be this one with what Oliver Glasner did coming in. I know you've lost Michael Elise, probably your best player. Jay is a target for Newcastle. Adam Wharton looks like he's signing, staying. Eze has been a target for others, but looks like he's staying. Just in what this guy did, Robin, and now it's interesting to see what he did over a shorter, half season. How does the group take this on and become over a season? Is this, as the habits formed now? Is the standard there? Is the system set? Is this way of playing? He gets those two number 10s underneath his striker. He plays with his wingers. As wing backs getting the width in inverted wingers. It's a lovely system. It's something that suits the players. And every time I hear Glasner, I hear the players, I hear people from Crystal Palace, they talk about how good this guy is. So I'm really looking forward to Crystal Palace this season. They've never finished higher than 10th in the Premier League, Rob. That would be something for Glasner to aim for. And at some point, maybe bring European football to Selhurst Park.
Yeah, I think we'll all watch out for Abracho Eze. Can Mateta keep the goal scoring form that he found? Ismail Assar, Rob, is a new sign. Remember we had him in the Premier League with Watford.
Good business. Him.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at his numbers again, and he's never been the consistent scorer.
No.
But he's got talent, hasn't he? So, he's not going to be a Michael
Wharton, Rob, looks like a player, doesn't he? Got into the England squad, and looks like he can step on up another level. Lovely cultured left foot. So a lot to look forward to for Crystal Palace, and I'm sure one of our friends who works with us will be looking forward to that.
Yeah. All right, the final question, my friend, I believe, is how will the newly promoted sides fare?
Yeah.
I'm going to go off and make a cup of tea. I'm going to go make a cup of tea, Rob, because I don't really want to talk about this segment too much.
It's always a tough one, isn't it? It's always a tough one.
I'm fearful, mate. I don't know about you. I'm fearful for the three of them.
I am, but I've gone down the road of. Let's just go on. Let's take it this way, Rob. Which one of them has the best chance of survival? And I'm going to go with Leicester City. I'm going to go with Leicester City, with Steve Cooper, with a group that's, listen, it's not the Leicester City team that won a title. It's not the Leicester City team that bulldozed into the top four, but it's, you know, they've got Connor Cody even. They've got Harry Winks, Jamie Vardy. There's decent experience in the group. They've got a manager who we know knows the league and can find his way out of situations, sometimes put a team out to deal with the opposition. I think it's a well-run club. I think it's got good owners. I think it's well supported. If the club's coming up, and listen, Ipswich been a brilliant story, but back-to-back promotions, I think, is just going to be a step too far with a group of players who were playing in League One not that long ago. For Southampton, great story. With Russell Martin, play really good, attractive football. Remind me a little bit of Burnley, how they came up. Just wonder if he can twist the dial a little bit and not be as open. Conceded a lot of goals from open play last season. So again, that stands to the way they play. If a team can do it, for me, Rob, I'm going to go Leicester City have the best chance of staying up in the Premier League.
Well, sadly, I couldn't disagree more. I think Leicester probably got the worst chance. I just think you just think about it. The best player last year was Dewsbury Hall. He's left the football club, gone to Chelsea. We're still talking Jamie Vardy, who's 37 now, is the best striker. Iheanacho, the other striker that scored goals, has left the club as well. Yeah. They look very light in attack, Rob. And Steve Cooper.
They bought a Fatara, a Ghanaian international. I think they had him on loan. Winger, quick, Rob.
They got Bonanotte as well. Facundo Bonanotte, a lovely footballer, actually. Lovely footballer that was at Leicester, was at Brighton, of course. I really enjoyed watching him play on the right-hand side. So, but you got the style change, Rob. You got a huge style change from Maresca that was all very, very silky and very, very proactive. I mean, maybe this will help them, but Steve Cooper is the opposite.
I'm not sure. I think you come into the Premier League too silky and too proactive, you end up back down in the Championship.
I know that can happen, but that group of players was built for that, and they did really well last year. They've lost some of the key components to that, and they've got a manager that's going to go with a different approach. I don't know where the goals are coming from when I look at Leicester City's squad right now, Rob. And Steve Cooper himself, when he said like a week ago, you know, we've got to become Premier League ready, as if we ain't. Yeah. We're just not Premier League ready. And we know they got the financial fair play thing. Did that even get that?
That is a worry. That is a worry.
I particularly worry about Leicester City. Now, Ipswich Town, Rob, first off, what a story. What a club. Like, again, people won't know much about Leicester for Ipswich Town, but they've won the top flight in English football a long time ago. They had a good team, good players, good manager, Bobby Robson. Now, this is going back a long way. All I'm trying to say for American viewers and fans of this is that this is cool. It's cool.
They were one of the founding members of the Premier League, Rob, 1992. They were in there. Right. They were regular, developed great players and lovely stadium to play at. And so one team city, isn't it, or town where you go, everybody from Ipswich supports Ipswich.
22 years away from the top flight. Kieran McKenna, Robbie. Kieran McKenna was an assistant at Man United for 3 years, was wanted. There was talk about like
Chelsea.
Brighton, Chelsea. Yeah. Even Man United were talking about trying to get
England,
this guy.
I think his name's got mentioned.
Yeah. They've got scoring wingers. They've secured the signing of Omar Hutchinson from Chelsea. He got 10 goals last year. Goalie from Burnley. I don't know how great that is. They've been very careful in the market, Rob. And again, as we go through these three teams, it really does seem difficult to see how they can stay up. I like the team that hasn't been there for a while. I know we saw some great spirit from Luton Town. Ultimately, it wasn't good enough, but they came closest. And it wouldn't surprise me if Ipswich Town are the team that goes closest. A very smart manager. Again, I think there's a little bit more business to be done. He's trying his very best to add to this squad. But I also feel, Rob, on teams that don't do too much transition and or turnover of players or have so many loan players that they can't afford to buy them all. That's not the case with Ipswich. They've got one or two which they've secured. So I think they might do okay. Ipswich is good story.
It'd be a great story. It'd be a fantastic story to see Ipswich. Yeah, well, stay up, having got 2 promotions and come through the leagues the way they've done. Do know somebody, a couple of people in the ownership group there who are brilliant football people, got good minds and won't overspend, but also will look to try and be competitive. So, yeah, I mean, that's going to be a great story, and it's great to have Ipswich back in the Premier League. And Southampton, Rob, I mean, 1 season away, Russell Martin's a very well thought of coach, very attack-minded, off a 4-3-3, and likes to do the inverted fullbacks. Often it's Kyle Walker-Peters who goes in. Yeah. It's extra numbers in midfield. They go, it's almost Pep-esque in the way that he wants to play and win the ball back, front foot, pressing from his strikers, not giving people time on the ball. Again, it's very clean. It's very open style of football. I just wonder for some of those teams, Rob, with the step up, with the quality of players you're playing against, can you do that? Or will Russell Martin and Southampton again have a tweak of saying against certain people and certain days, we'll have to be a little bit more careful?
I just think of the club, Rob, and remember when the new ownership came in and they very much on the money ball side of things. Remember they bought the young players. And it's like, oh, you're buying these young players for the future, and they might go on to be really good Premier League players. But right now you're struggling, and they went down. Ben Brereton Diaz, Rob. Remember him last year that went to Sheffield United and really had a pretty good impact. That's a smart bit of business for Southampton. They bought him. Sadly, they couldn't get Fabio Carvajal from Liverpool. He went to Brentford. That would have been good business. I think a couple of players from loan last year that they've managed.
Got a centre back from City, haven't they? Taylor Harwood Belly. So I was looking at him, a big centre back who's good on the ball, nice and clean as you expect.
Yeah, with Flynn Downs as well, the 2 players that were on loan last year.
And Armstrong. So there's a few players who've been around, who've scored goals, who've made a mark at this level. Again, it's getting to a start, isn't it? But for most of the team, can they get off to a half decent start, get a couple of points in the bag early, build a bit of confidence and belief, and then listen, it's a 38 game slog against some of the best players in European football. You've got to find a way to be 16th in the league.
It feels good, doesn't it, mate? It feels good. Like we're a few days away from the start of the season.
Yeah,
I mean, we all have a summer break, and
I
play a ton of golf, and we travel, but this time it's like, okay, I've had enough of that now. I want to get back into it.
Ready for action.
We're going to be pitch side.
Fortunately, I don't think some of the players might be, Rob. There's been a lot of football during this summer, hasn't there? There's, with Euros and Olympics and Gold Cups and other competitions for players around the world. I mean, it's getting less and less time for players now.
Do you know what's interesting, Rob? Just on that, right? And I totally agree, by the way. And of course, there's more games in the Champions League. There's talk about the FIFA Club World Cup at the end of the season, which I think the clubs are trying to protest against. But an interesting little tidbit I caught this week. Pep Guardiola, apparently, the report was in the Daily Mail in the UK, that he basically says to his squad, Rob, the internationals, you come back when you're ready. When you're ready to come back into this club and start training again, then you do that. He gives them absolute autonomy on when they come back. Example being, in that Community Shield, Kobe Mainoo played, was an England player in the final of the Euros, was playing in the game, started the game, and apparently Rodri, who was playing in the same game for Spain, is not even reported back for training there, or was doing very little. So that's just an interesting little bit of Pepism that maybe as the season goes on,
code, mate. That's the code.
The little code, the little blueprint that he's got. That's part of it, allowing players to rest as much as they want to do. Now, I'm sure some players would be taking advantage of that. It might
take a few weeks, mate. It might be 2 or 3 games in before we see people back to the levels and the speed and the intensity that we are used to. And as you say, that could be a time when teams down the bottom can maybe nick a few points. Teams, looking to get mid-table in Europe can nick a few points that they maybe
could Arsenal, Rob, could Arsenal catch City out a little bit? Could Arsenal catch City out after those games?
Absolutely they could. I mean, there's 2 points between them, Rob, and I think 16 wins out of the last 18 games for Arsenal. They can absolutely
if they fly out the
get off to a start, and if they get the nose in front this time, you kind of feel like they're better suited, and you say got better depth this time. To maybe hang in there. So that's going to be the challenge for Manchester City, and I'm sure Pep and his group of players know that. But listen, there might be 1 or 2 others. Arne Slot, Ange Postecoglou might also have something to say in that as well.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting season, mate. All these new managers, the Chelsea project, the Man United project, never a dull moment. And I'm always astonished how things change, Rob, from end of the season, only a few months ago to now. And it feels like there's different stories at all the big clubs particularly.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Can't wait to get started.
And we'll be across it, mate, as ever. Yeah. That wraps up our preview for the start of the new season. There's so much to look forward to over the next 9 months. Will City make it 5 out of 5, or will Arsenal and Arteta find a way to the top? And we'll find out what Slot got, what Ange Ball 2 looks like, and maybe what can we expect from Ten Hag and Manchester United, and can any of the 3 promoted teams survive in the best and the biggest football league in the world? And look out for our coverage that starts on Friday, August the 16th. We're all going to be at Old Trafford for Manchester United versus Fulham. That's 2 p.m. Eastern Time, live on USA Network. Lady Low back from the Olympics with me, Mustoe, and Tim Howard, all pitchside, all getting into the first game of the season. So, but for now, I'm Earle. He's Mustoe, together with the 2 Robbies. Thanks for watching and listening. Be safe, stay healthy. It's a good night from me.
And it's good night from him. Good night.
Good night.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch more videos all season long. And for even more Premier League content, from original series to live matches, head over to Peacock. And be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend on USA Network and on Peacock. We will see you there.